Hey guys, today I'm gonna go over how to beat Apocalyptic Shadow Pollux. I am very enthused about this boss. Very fun and interactive. As you can see, here's the table of contents. Feel free to skip to whatever sections you need using the timestamps below. Of course, if you'd like to put in your teams, check the description and submit your teams in the Google form. With that out of the way, let's begin. So some quick Cocolia updates. Her HP's increased by 28.5% across the board, but otherwise she's still the same boss. Now you have Archer for free, so it should pretty much be an easy win. Um, as for the buffs, I guess you don't get skill points on break, you get a full heal, which is a little bit worse. But you do get extra skill damage and Memo Sprite skill damage to kind of perfectly counteract the HP inflation, so for skill reliant DPSs, this should just be the same boss. Face Shao still clears, Herta and Anaxa still clears, DOT not as much, maybe, since although you have Hyselin, she doesn't contribute to breaking, and the DOT buff when weakness breaking is 4 times weaker to, I guess, compensate for DOT being a lot stronger. The break buff is the buff you want to use if you don't know what to use, but like, it helps a little bit. Doesn't really help your damage, but oh well. As for Pollux, well, yeah, if you have Casters or Evernight, just run them. You can legitimately use Hyacine as a DPS here. Same with Lingsha, she's actually pretty good with Sunday. Other HP trainers are pretty nice too. Blade less so unless you can run as Stainless, which requires some pretty significant investment. It's just an HP loss and raw damage check, so whatever does the most damage versus 3 still targets, and can also just not die, I guess. As for the sustains, just raw healing power is the most important. If you can build the healer squishy, that's great, or if they're Hyacine, that's also great. And for strategies, just bring Castris or Evernight if you have them. There's like 2 different ways to approach this fight. The first is to build everyone tanky, which you should prioritize your defense over your HP, since a lot of Pollux's attacks deal damage based on your max HP. So the more defense you have rather than the more HP, the easier it is to heal back up while not taking that much damage. Alternatively, you can completely go the squishy route, build +0 headpieces, or just have incomplete relic sets, level 1 light cones, just so that your HP can be set low so that the max HP damage doesn't do that much, and also that you can charge up the max HP loss mechanic as fast as possible. If you're really desperate, Dan Heng is coming up. He's at level 1, so he can technically supercharge Pollux's HP bar if you want to do that. I don't know how viable it is actually, but it is something to consider. Maybe it's important, I don't know. Anyways, for targeting strategies, for phase 1, before Pollux reaches 100% charge, which is accomplished through losing 500% max HP across your team, you typically want to let the arms hit you so they can do more damage and you can charge up the gauge faster. And afterwards, you're going to want to hard focus them for maximum damage, since breaking them also deals toughness and damage to Pollux itself. And for the healing ults, you'd want to save those to instantly remove HP overload from your DPS, unless you have like an emergency healer like Locha who can instantly heal your DPS back to positive HP. If you want to go the level 1 light cone strats, you can buy some stuff from the MOC shop. There's like Quid Pro Quo, Victorina Blink if you're running Remembrance MC. There's that one Harmony Light Cone Dreamville adventure. Some other niche options are like Multiplication and Find Fruit for your healers, Shadowburn for your Remembrance characters, Chorus for your harmonies if you really don't have anything, and Passkey if you're running an Erudition like Serval or Anaxa with your Herta team maybe. If you have level 1 Dance, level 1 Make the World Clamor, that's great, but they're gacha 4-star light cones, so I'm not really gonna include them in this visual. Okay, so how has Pollux changed from Memory of Chaos to Apocalyptic Shadow? Well, massive HP increase, massive toughness increase, almost like 5 times more HP, The arms have a bit more toughness, which is actually good, since now breaks will deal less than like -5 damage versus them. Every time you break them, it also deals 70 toughness to Pollux. So even though it's at 800 toughness, it's not the worst thing in the world, but still directly breaking it is a slog. As for the stuff that's the same, well, it still has the same speed. The attack is basically the same. It also has the same resistance, so you actually can go off element pretty easily. It's not like your traditional Apocalyptic Shadow bosses where they have 40% res or even 60% versus certain elements. And as for the buffs, well, Memory of Chaos level up your skills and Memo Sprite skills. Apocalyptic Shadow strengthens your skills and Memo Sprite skills. Removing Fragrance of Death, which is the pink phase after you get through that 500% max HP hurdle, you get a full heal. You also get a full heal if you do the same thing here, which will happen if Pollux's weakness broken as well. Both of them heal up to 45% of your T max HP. And as for the buffs this time for this side that you can select, well, Memo Sprites get 20% defense ignore as if they weren't shielded enough already. You have a skill damage buff plus a sustain buff if you are struggling to keep your DPS out of negative HP for like Anaxa the Herda specifically. And if you want to try breaking this thing, or if neither skill damage or Memo Sprite damage is important to you, then you can select a third buff, which gives you a pretty impressive 100% weakness break efficiency, as well as 40% crit damage for 3 turns upon ulting, which is pretty nice. Makes 800 toughness a little bit less of a slog, but considering that it's force sustain, the fight is going to be slow anyways. Okay, so we know that Pollux had 90% damage reduction in Memory of Chaos. How much does Pollux have here? Well, when it's not broken, it has 50% damage reduction, plus up to negative 20% more per weakness that it's missing. And if you add up to 4 weaknesses, then it loses that 20% damage reduction, minus 5% reduction per weakness. When it's broken, it takes double damage. All 4 weaknesses return to it. And also if you break its arms, those arms weaknesses return to Pollux temporarily and reduce the damage reduction by the same amount of weaknesses times 5. So uniquely to this stage though, you can't die. It's kind of like having a permanent global passive, but when your HP drops into those negatives, you enter the HP overload state, which cuts your damage dealt by 90%, and this is multiplicative with the original damage reduction. So you're basically dealing 0 damage while your HP is negative. You also lose 50% weakness break efficiency, which, I mean, considering the 100% weakness break efficiency buff, you still come out at positive 50%, but it's still not a good place to be. If your character takes 3 turns in HP overload, then, well, they die for real. So unlike Caster's global passive, where you have 1 turn, here you have 3 turns, but obviously you're taking a lot more damage in the process. Technically, this status can affect Memo Sprites, but really the best Memo Sprites against Pollux just kill themselves, so it's not like it really affects them either. And, well, Memo Sprites just dodge the main mechanic of this fight anyways. So, how to remove the damage reduction? Well, each phase of Pollux starts toughness locked, so you can't like brute force break it. Not that you would want to do that against 800 toughness anyways. But in order to clear the toughness lock, you must take 500% max HP as total damage across your team to fill up the Desperate Bubble meter. And when Desperate Bubble is equal to 100%, then it enters the Fragrance of Death state, which is immediately followed by its AoE attack to Die in Aromatic Pain. This will deal 120% of all characters' max HP as basically unignorable damage. Memo Sprites are unaffected, just like in MOC. Why that is, I mean, we all kind of know, but like, it's really funny that it's the Memo Sprite show. So once the Fragrance of Death state it happens, the toughness gets unlocked, and the damage reduction sort of goes away, kind of. In order to break the toughness bar, you can either just break it directly, deplete that 800 toughness, or deal 40% of its max HP on phase 1 or 30% on phase 2. Note that it still does have the 50 to 70% damage reduction, and paired with the 90% extra damage reduction when you're in that HP overload state, you really need to heal back to positive HP from the negative HP that Pollux is guaranteed to set you up into. Otherwise, you're dealing legit 0 damage. So, with all that damage reduction, how much does that actually translate to? Well, it's not as bad, since you do inflict some max HP by breaking the long arms, and when Fragrance of Death is removed, then Pollux, upon being broken, also loses 15% of its max HP. So with about 27% max HP, assuming you break the arms 4 times, and then the extra 15% lost from breaking Pollux itself, you have to deal about effective 8.43 million damage. But of course, shared HP damage is, when weakest broken, is pretty easy to brute force. The more important stat is actually the effective damage needed to break Pollux, accounting for the best case scenario of damage reduction. In phase 1, this is 9.24 million, which is very, very fun for teams that are forced to run sustain. That was obviously very sarcastic. That is not a fun number whatsoever. Luckily, it does get a lot lower in phase 2, since not only do you only have to reduce 30% max HP, but for some reason the long arms, the safeguard state, which would reduce their damage taken by 50%, just doesn't come back during phase 2, which is nice. So yeah, the arms are especially weaker during phase 2, which makes the effective damage you need to output as low as 3.46 million and as high as 6.93 million if you only target Pollux for some reason, which you shouldn't do. Okay, as for the attack patterns on phase 1, all attacks will inflict a status called Hasten Death, which is an unremovable DOT. It'll deal 20% of your current HP every turn, or 20% max HP if you're in the HP overload state. In turn 1, Pollux will use a single target attack, followed by an attack that hits 3 random targets. For turn 2, Pollux will hit you with an AoE, and then enhance one arm for 3 turns, and then advance it by 100%, so it attacks immediately. And usually by turn 2, most teams will have lost enough HP to trigger To Die in Aromatic Pain, which enters the Fragrance of Death state, and you can start actually dealing damage. For turn 3, this is another 3 target attack, followed by another AoE. For the long arms, they just inflict single target attacks. They're slower than Pollux. The right long arm is delayed by 30%, so it's actually kind of desynced. And if it's enhanced by Pollux, then instead of doing a single target attack, it does a blast attack instead. And if you hit the long arms before entering Fragrance of Death, this is important actually. It deals a fixed 600 damage per arm hit. So if you hit both arms, then you'll lose 1200 damage regardless of your defense or damage reduction or anything like that, which is really good if you have squishy characters that want to build up charge as fast as possible. So they'll be taking like that 1200 damage, which could translate to like as much as 100% of their max HP or more if you build them super squishy. As for phase 2, the attack patterns are the exact same as phase 1, except this time after using To Die in Aromatic Pain and activating the Fragrance of Death state, Pollux delays its next action by 100%, and then its next attack will inflict an AoE that deals 80% of everyone's max HP. If any characters are in HP overload, they just die immediately. So yeah, you're pretty much put on a timer for phase 2, even faster than it was in phase 1, but realistically, if you're getting to this point, then you should have already healed up. And yeah, that's kind of it for the boss. You can kind of tell that I really am not fond of this boss whatsoever. Uh, it is really just a Casterus and Evernight check. I think Fei Xiao was kind of bordering on that with how much it showed DOT, but at least in DOT's case, the most important character I'd say was Ron Mei, since it was a purely break-focused boss. This is just an HP wall. An HP wall that also forces a sustain on like 99% of teams, and even the teams that can run sustainless like Firefly and Blade typically don't want to. I guess Mighty can run sustainless too, but even then it's like, yeah, you're still not getting anywhere near the 3,900 maximum scores that the Mammo Sprite teams are capable of achieving. It's pretty much like 3,300, 3,600, and I guess it's less a matter of actually like passing this stage. It's just, I don't know, this fight's just not very interactive, like, at all. Like, as long as you focus on following the prompts on screen, like, okay, just heal up so you don't stay at negative HP, make sure to break the tentacles whenever you can so that you deal more max HP and break damage, and just use all your abilities as much as you can, then yeah. It's not even like Lygus either, which is kind of one of the big things, where even though Lygus is a big tank, he gives your team a bunch of ults and advances them, but no, Pollux just hits you very slowly and occasionally. It's just a damage check. I don't know what else to say. So yeah, thanks for watching. I promise I'll have more energy in future videos. I just really do not care for this boss much whatsoever. Alright, have a great day.